To the tragic breaking news out of Mississippi. Officials are investigating a fiery marine plane crash that's believed to have killed all 16 on board. Witnesses say that the KC-130 transport aircraft corkscrewed out of the sky last night and then slammed into a soybean field about 85 miles north of Jackson. FBI and local authorities are still sifting through the debris this morning across a 5-mile radius. Joining us right now is Fox News military analyst General Jack Keane. General, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you, Maria.
Still no word on the cause. Your thoughts, your reaction?
Well, our hearts go out to these families, to be sure. Their lives will never be the same. And I've always said, having dealt with this all my life, you know, we have accidental, non-combat related deaths. We lose a few hundred service people every single year. And these instruments of war are as dangerous in peacetime as they are in war and combat. And here, I mean, something catastrophic happened for that crew to lose control of the airplane, the way it's at least being described by witnesses. You know, we can only speculate at this point. They'll get to the bottom of exactly what is the cause of that crash, but it's certainly tragic to be sure. There were secondary explosions and they couldn't put the fire out because some ammunition was going off, and it's also not surprising on military airplanes we got ammunition on board.
Yeah, for sure. General, we got Jason Chaffetz in the house. Jason?
Yeah, General, talk about the infrastructure that we have, how dilapidated the actual planes themselves are. We don't know the cause of this crash yet, but some of these planes are 50, 60 years old. What is your view of how dilapidated the infrastructure actually is?
Yeah, well, yeah, in terms of the United States military, what's happened to us, when the Soviet Union collapsed in '91, we took that peace dividend, which was understandable, and we stopped building new things. And then when 9/11 came, we focused on the 9/11 wars, to be sure, which are essentially a light infantry wars, and we put our money into that. So it's been a long time before we have been able to invest properly in military capability. The last time we did it in any consequential way was during the Reagan buildup years. So a lot of our airplanes, our ground vehicles, our ships are truly aging out. And the airplanes are older than the people that are flying them in many cases. This KC-135 is a case in point. It's one of the oldest airplanes that we have in service. So yes, we have aging equipment that we have got to get on with moving out of the inventory and replace it.
Well, you said, we were together a couple of months ago in an interview, General, and you said to me that, was it 30% of our planes in the Navy are, they're not flyable?
Close to 50% actually, and then in some of the services it's higher than that. And what it is we don't have enough spare parts, Maria, to keep the planes flying. So what they're doing is they're cannibalizing other airplanes to keep some of the planes flying, and that's obviously taking down more airplanes. So and when you have fewer airplanes flying, you're putting more stress on those fewer number of airplanes, and guess what happens? They start to have mechanical problems. Sure. So you find yourself in kind of a death spiral in terms of your equipment readiness, and that's where we are.
That is very dangerous, actually, General, and I'm glad you pointed this out so long ago, because our viewers know it going into this this fatality this morning. I want to turn to the war on terror. The Iraqi army has finally driven ISIS out of Mosul after months of fighting in the terror group's former stronghold. Just this morning, President Trump tweeted this out: big wins against ISIS. General Keane, do you agree with that? Tell us where you see the fight right now.
Well, yes, certainly. I mean, ISIS invaded Iraq with 30,000 fighters in 2014. It took us 9 months in the United States for President Obama to finally get on board and help the Iraqis. And we saw that whole Iraqi army flee in the face of ISIS, because that was not the same army that we had trained back in 2007 that was so successful during the surge. Maliki had literally destroyed it with political hacks in charge of it. So we had to rebuild that army over these last couple of years. So yeah, this is a big victory, retaking second largest city in Iraq. But ISIS is not defeated. They just took a small town 40 miles south of this yesterday. They'll be able to conduct limited attacks like that in rural areas and villages, and they'll be able to continue to do their terrorist operations. And they have expanded into 30 countries, and they're still out there motivating and inspiring people to kill their own citizens. So comprehensively, this is good victory for the Iraqis, and hats off to the Americans who have helped them there. General Townsend is one of the best operational commanders we've ever had, and he is significant there. We got to get on with our operations in Syria and bring down that safe haven as well.
General, this is good news, good victory for the Iraqis. How does Iran fit into this? Iran is an enemy of ISIS too. Does this victory at all strengthen Iran's hands as it looks at its reach across Iraq and into Syria and Lebanon?
Yeah, that's a great question. The Iranians are the dominant threat in the region, not ISIS. The president said that as much when he met with the 55 leaders of the nation in the Middle East. He stood up and told them that the #1 strategic threat in the region is Iran. I stand with you against this threat. And the Iranians are trying to build a land bridge from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, to Lebanon, to the Mediterranean. And this is key. The Iranians have significant influence in Iraq. Ever since we pulled out in 2011, when we left with our troops and our political influence, the Iranians gained rather dramatically in influence. The president is facing a decision here. This war is winding down inside Iraq, to be sure. There's going to be pressure to pull our troops out. The Iranians want our troops out of there for sure. We've got to leave our troops there post-conflict to have influence over the Iranian government, just as we left our troops post-conflict in Germany, in Italy, in Japan after World War II, and successfully in Korea after the Korean War. It was a mistake to pull our troops out of there in 2011. We lost our influence over that government, and the Iranians have gained it rather dramatically, and that's got to stop.
It sounds like the president understands that and will act accordingly then, General. But then, of course, there's North Korea. Overnight, America successfully tested its THAAD anti-ballistic missile, shooting down a projectile over Kodiak, Alaska. General Keane, what do you think this means for the growing tensions with the Kim Jong-un regime? What should be done now in terms of North Korea?
Well, first of all, that's a great missile, and that kills an incoming missile in the terminal phase. In other words, when it's getting close to the ground. It doesn't deal with an intercontinental ballistic missile. That is something we want to kill in space. And we do have ground-based mid-course missile systems to do that in Alaska and also in California. But the Trump administration is doubling down on diplomatic, economic sanctions. That's where they are. That's what we're going to do moving ahead.
General, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks so much.